I am Bonneau Ansley, an active real estate agent and founder of Ansley Real Estate, Christie's International, an award-winning Atlanta-based real estate brokerage that did over $3 billion in sales last year.
And I'm Chris Tuff, one of the first advertisers to work directly with Mark Zuckerberg in 2006. I've since gone on to be the best-selling author of The Millennial Whisperer and Save Your Asks.
And this is Brokering Billions. This podcast is about uncovering the hustle, perseverance, mindset, and tricks that are used by the top real estate agents in the country to help you take your business to the next level.
In today's episode, we're going to throw listeners for a little bit of a loop because we are interviewing Paul Ollinger. Now, Paul has nothing to do with real estate. Paul was one of the first people at Facebook, and let's just say he's not struggling on the whole money thing right now. Instead, he's now taken a deep dive into the relationship between money and happiness. He has one of the most popular podcasts in this space called Crazy Money, and he's going to share with listeners how we can better approach not only our goals, but our relationship with money. Please welcome to the show, Paul Ollinger.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. It's on.
We got a good one today, a different one.
It is. It is on. One of my favorite people in the world and one of the funniest people I know, Paul Ollinger.
Well, I can't wait to get into this. I'm Bonneau Ansley.
And I'm Chris Tuff.
We are Brokering Billions. We're here at Ansley headquarters, Christie's International, right in hot Atlanta, actually where our guest Paul Ollinger lives. Paul, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I'm just down the street. Close enough, anyway.
I love it. I love it. In a house Bonneau did not sell to you. Is that correct, Paul?
I didn't know Bonneau when I moved back to Atlanta 11 years ago. So I didn't have
to... I'll get you on the retrade.
It's all relationships, baby. That's what it is.
Well, Paul, this is interesting. You know, you are the first guest that we've had that does not broker billions, does not sell property, right? Yet. We're working on that. Someday I'm going to work for Bonneau. I'm looking forward to it. It's great to have you. And God, lately, we're going to get into a lot of just different stuff. Paul, love to kind of hear your background, right? You've got this amazing background. You're a world-renowned comedian.
World-renowned, yeah, absolutely.
You've got a great podcast series yourself, and you're an expert on money, right? And why are you an expert on money? Because you have a lot, right?
A lot is a relative term. And that's one of the things you learn when you make money is that you feel like you've done great. And then you start hanging out with Bonneau Ansley and you're like, maybe I don't have a lot of money. So basically, my background is I came out of business school 25 years ago. And I had told jokes at a talent show in business school where I went, by the way, because I wanted a job where I made more money. Sorry, when you end up getting bit by the comedy bug, that works quite contrary to your desire to make a lot of money. So I didn't anticipate that when I went to business school and borrowed $150,000 in today's dollars. And I did feel like I needed to pay that back because I'm old fashioned. And so I went to work in 1997 in the digital media business. And I went to work for a company called launch.com, which was a music website, just because I thought it was cool. It was the coolest thing I could think of doing in the business world. And I was fortunate to get in on kind of the early days of the internet business. And I ended up working at Yahoo from 2001 to 2005. I paid off those student loans. And what I had done earlier was say, if I ever pay off these student loans and I'm still single, I'm going to go do comedy full time. And I did. I moved out to LA and I did comedy for 2 years. I opened for all these great established comedians like Norm Macdonald and Roseanne Barr and Chelsea Handler, and up and coming guys like at the time Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, who are now huge comedy stars. And I did that for 2 years. It didn't quite take off like I was thinking. And so when I got engaged to my wife and mother of my children, I was like, you know what? I think I need a real job. And right about that time, I got a phone call from a buddy of mine I worked with at Yahoo. And he said, would you want to come be a salesperson at this little company called Facebook? And this was in 2007. And I was like, sure, what the hell? Someday they could be as big as MySpace. I literally said that to my wife. And that demonstrates to you just like how forward thinking and what tremendous vision I have for the evolution of technology. Worked there for 4.5 years because I had hit a number in my head that was bigger than I ever could have imagined in terms of, hey, that stock is now worth X millions of dollars. I was like, why do I need to work? I'm just going to bail, because work was stressful. Work was there were some things at work that I didn't love. And I just sort of bailed without a plan in 2011 and moved back to Atlanta, where I grew up and where my family was at the time. My plan was basically to be around for my parents and to figure out what was next, but I didn't have like a work plan. And I goofed off for a couple of years and realized all of a sudden I'm miserable. Why does this money not make me feel like I'm as important as I thought it would before I made it? And I realized that I wasn't giving myself credit for that. Work gave me a place in the world. It gave me colleagues that I could hang out with. It gave me a good answer to the question, do. And it always kept me on my toes. I was always learning. And when you stop working, you stop growing. And that's when I started writing and thinking about the role of money and work and the intersection of money, work, and fulfillment in life. And that's where the podcast I eventually came up with, Crazy Money, started. And right about the time I got my head out of my ass, I started getting back on stage, going to do comedy in around 2014. And so I've been back in the comedy game here in Atlanta for the past 8 years. So yeah, the FU backpack is an interesting concept that I never gave any consideration to, because I never imagined what it would be like when I actually made fuck you money, right? Like, we all think we know life is going to be perfect if we make X millions of dollars or get something that we think is going to empower us to be the person we've all always dreamed of being. But these things come with unanticipated consequences and side effects that you're not aware of. And one of them was the FU backpack. So you think before you make fuck you money that the reason they call it fuck you money is that money gives you the power to be able to say to your boss, F you. But what I learned is they call it that because you will say that to your boss unless you're aware of the role that you want work to play in your life. And that had I given a thought to how much I was getting from being a part of Facebook beyond just the paychecks, which were significant, I would have not been so cavalier with the way I managed my exit from the company, right? And so when you're walking around with this fuck you backpack on, you're not even aware of how volatile you are and the decisions that you're about to make. So it's really important to try to step back and say, wait a minute, I'm not acting rationally. I need to step back and say, what do I really want out of life? What role could work play in a life that I want to lead if I could design the perfect job for myself? And if there's one thing I'm disappointed about with the way I left Facebook, it isn't that I didn't have a plan, which was a big part of it, but as I never tried to work with the people at Facebook to say, how can I be me in a role that really feels good at this company and helps build value, and I can maintain my relationships here. I can be a part of this incredible rocket ship, et cetera. Now, that doesn't mean I would have gotten my way or that the perfect job would have emerged, but at least I would have given it a shot. That's how the FU backpack can really get in the way of having the kind of role in the corporate world or in the work world that allows you to be you. And it will blow you up if you're not careful.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about that relationship of, I mean, you've recorded now, what, over 150 episodes of Crazy Money, right?
Yeah, I think we're on 155, something like that right now.
Amazing. And I mean, and you've had some big guests on your show. You know, I think if there's anyone to speak to the relationship of money, happiness, and, you know, life, it's you. Paul, tell us a little bit about, put in the mindset of the listeners who are real estate agents, right? That are always striving to get to that next level. It's never enough, right? Like, talk a little bit about just some of your kind of macro learnings that you've been able to gather along the way.
When I found myself sort of not knowing what to do next with my life and having this money and still feeling, I don't feel as accomplished as I did when I was still working. I don't feel as fulfilled as I did when I was broke, but busting ass toward a goal 10 years ago. And so I started reading all I could about money, everything from religion to philosophy to behavioral economics. And I learned about a few concepts that I'd never heard before, and they really just kind of blew my eyes open. One of them was called the hedonic treadmill. And this is a concept that basically says that we all have sort of a base level of happiness in our lives, and that whether we for example, win the lottery or have a disaster happen in our life, say you lose your legs in a car accident or something like that, that at a certain point, we're bummed out or we're thrilled for a few months, but at a certain point, we basically return to that set point of happiness. And there's people that say, yes, it's true, yes, it's not, but it's a theory that really made a lot of sense, because for a while after you win the lottery, you're thinking, my life's going to be perfect. But then you look in the mirror and you're the same old moron with the same old pimples and the same, you're still 15 pounds overweight, not you, Tough, but most of us. You go, well, why don't I feel good? Why don't I feel different? Why didn't this money that I always expected would make me feel better? Why doesn't it make me feel better? It's because we get used to it, because we adapt to whatever circumstances life presents to us. You start out thinking, that an Audi is the best car you could ever drive. And then you drive an A6 or an R8 or whatever it is. And you drive it for a little while. You're like, this just feels normal. I think I need a Ferrari. And then you drive a Ferrari and then you get used to that, right? So this incredible ability to build up tolerance to affluence. And so we're constantly striving for more. And the only way we'll ever feel fulfilled is when we choose to decide that we have enough, that you stop and you look around and you practice gratitude, like meditation and things like that, so that you go, oh, my life is pretty good. And I need to just be aware and, quote, mindful of the things that I've got that bring me a lot of joy on a day-to-day basis. Because if you don't, you will constantly be stretching to get that next level of affluence or material thing that is just on the horizon that by definition you'll never reach. It's complicated because when you're worth $1 million, you generally hang out with people who are worth $500,000 to $3 million. Then you make $10 million and you start hanging out with people that are worth 20 to 50 or $100 million. And you join clubs where, hey, it's not flying first class, it's flying on net jets, or it's the guy who owns his own Gulfstream. And there's always somebody who's got a little bit more than you do that makes you feel a little bit unsatisfied. And you think to yourself, well, gee, why am I not, rolling like Bonneau does when he travels? Or why is my house not as nice as the guy next door who just added, a whole wing to his house? It's a futile way to live. And so it really takes a purposeful decision to say, I'm doing what I want to do with my life. I'm fulfilled by the things that I have. I don't need more, because everything around us, our environment and our things, combine to make us be unsatisfied with our current situation. Part of that is good. I mean, part of that dissatisfaction drives our ambition, which helps us build things like real estate empires, right? And those are good things. And you've provided you've served your clients well. You've provided employment for a lot of your agents. You've inspired the next generation of real estate professionals. But at a certain point, our ambition will start to work against us, because we won't be satisfied with the great things we already have in our life. So comparison, the hedonic treadmill, and just being aware that we'll never be satisfied are some of the really important points that we talk about and continue to revisit through different lenses on Crazy Money.
Paul's about to get emails from Bonneau's 9 car dealers being like, Paul, you're crushing me here.
No, but
Bonneau has 3 Broncos ordered with us, 9 Range Rovers.
Well, look, at the end of the day, it's a word called content. What we have been teaching on this podcast is, okay, guys, you did 10 million last year. You want to get to 20. You did 20. You want to get to 40. You did 100. Yeah. How can you go to 200, 200 to 400? And that's me. I've been on this treadmill forever, man. And I guess that's a blessing and a curse, because I'm not content with what I'm doing and where I am. And I bet that a lot of listeners are feeling that same way, right? And that's a good thing, right? Because it keeps you ambitious. It keeps you going and reaching for the gold. But from a happiness standpoint, I'm sitting here still getting up early, doing everything, trying to sell, trying to do this, trying to start businesses, trying to just keep adding and going and going. And geez, when's the contentment come in?
I would check you on that, right? And this is why these things are so tricky, because there's not one right answer. And by the way, if you were content and you just stopped working, and this is what I learned by not working, right? People think that early retirement is a great thing. It's not. It's death's waiting room. And I mean, when you stop working, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you start dying. And that's not like something I read on a t-shirt. It's just the absolute truth. And so you have to balance this desire to keep moving forward, to be acquisitive, to continue learning, with the tendency to just stop, because at a certain point we'll all stop, and that's death, right? Or your body will break down to the point where you don't have a choice but to slow down. So you might as well, get after it while you still have the opportunity, as long as you're really investing in the parts of your life that are the most important parts. And Beno, when you talk about you're going to build a house in Sea Island. Well, why do you want to build a house in Sea Island? Because you want to spend time with your family there, because you want to create memories, because you want, you want to find environments where you can really relish the things that are most important in life in the conditions, in a state of luxury that makes it that much more fantastic to do it. You want to have a house where when your kids go off to college, they're going to be dying to come back home and bring their friends with them, so that you maintain those relationships. So really is, I think, a balance of, if you were working 90 hours a week and never saw your kids, never saw your wife, that'd be one thing. And that's a young person's game, by the way. That you can only do that for so long. At a certain point, either your body's going to break down or your emotions are going to just scream out to say, I need something else in life. And that's what they call middle age. And that's why there's so many people who transition careers in middle age. And I think that's what I was doing. I had hustled for so long that when I got to a certain point, I wanted to express myself in a different way professionally. I didn't know how to do that. The only way I could make that change was just to walk away. And that's not the most productive way to do things. But in the end, it eventually got me to where I was investing my days and hours in things that I really, really care about. They don't pay very well, but I'm having a lot of fun and growing a lot in the process.
I think that's why, happenstance where you and I met, Chris, and now I'm so focused in giving back to all the agents, in the world, to talk to them about, hey, this is how other people do things around the country. This is how somebody in California has been successful, in New York, in Florida, writing this book, Brokering Billions. And look, I'm not a writer, man. I'm a dyslexic. Like I've read probably 5 books in my whole life. And I've actually written a book, not for the money, but to try to develop this other passion to give back and to teach out there. And I'm having a lot of fulfillment doing this.
It's like what comedy is to Paul Ollinger, Brokering Billions is to Beno.
I think I would even say you're in a stronger position than I am with comedy, because you have a clear understanding of who your work is for and what benefit you're trying to provide for them. There is a clear one-to-one relationship between your effort and your audience than I can say that I've achieved through both comedy and podcasting. Now, I've gotten a moderate-sized loyal audience. There's a lot of people that come up to me or send me emails and say, what you're doing really matters. But I think the more specific you can be about whose problem you're solving, the better your chances are of reinventing yourself or redirecting your energy in the back half of your career. We were talking about comparison before, and I think what's really important about comparison is compare yourself to who you were last year, last week, 10 years ago. Don't compare yourself to your neighbor. None of us compare ourselves to the people that are below us on an economic scale. We're always reaching out to the person who has more than we do. And because in the 1%, that curve is so incredibly steep, it's really easy to feel like a loser if you're not as successful as some of the, really successful people we all know in common.
So if you were to dissect the mindset of listeners, I mean, here we have agents that most likely got into the game because they're good salespeople. Naturally, they're outgoing. They love people. They want to be their own boss. They want to create their own, daily routines, and they're motivated, right? And what is motivating
them? Fit
them?
in the corporate structure,
total
by any means.
They can go to the kids' games and then start cranking on calls and selling houses and doing their thing. But if you look at that drive, right, for agents that are listening and that are always on a similar track to what Beno does with his business, which is basically take your goal and then increase it by 50% year over year, right? And you're always doing that. Would you say that's an unhealthy way to practice, or is it all about the individual and how they're looking at their lives? I mean, how would you look at that, Paul?
Well, I would say it's the latter. I mean, it is a great way to practice if your greater life circumstances permit that. If you're going to grow your business 50%, it's going to come at a personal cost of time and effort and focus. Do you have that to spare in addition to your other responsibilities in life? If your kids are grown and they're gone, you have more time to focus on your business. If your parents are ill and they need taken care of, I'm one of 6 kids. So when my parents died, I had 5 siblings that helped take care of them. My wife is an only child. Taking care of parents is going to be a bigger burden on her than it was on me. If growing your business is the most important thing you've got to work on, then why not grow by 50% every year? If maintaining, 1-to-1 over last year is all you can do, then be okay with that. I'm not saying don't be ambitious. I'm just saying, like, it's got to work. I mean, if people are getting into this so that they can live the kind of life that they're designing on their own, that's going to vary then from year to year based on the other circumstances that are happening. People who are focused on growth, younger people, older people without the responsibilities of raising kids, grow that mofo. Why not? But no, what do you think? Am I totally wrong about that? I mean,
no, you're exactly right. It's so interesting to have this comparison with Paul on the show when we've had 20 other episodes on, oh my God, what are you gonna do next year? How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna maintain this? What are you gonna do to increase your revenue? How are you going to grow your team? How are you going to grow your business? Like what other markets are you going to dive into?
But no, like here's one of the things that I've really appreciated learning from Beno now that we've been immersed in this thing is the importance of delegation and playing to your strengths, right? Like, Beno, you've done a phenomenal job outsourcing the stuff you both hate and suck at, right?
Well, that's because I suck at 90% of everything that people do.
Like, yeah. I mean, you've created quite an environment for you to both thrive, but also still have that work-life balance. Like that doesn't really go that far out of whack. I'm sure there's been times in your trajectory over the last 15 years or whatever, where you've gone one, the other side of it. But generally speaking, what I love about brokering billions is you're inspiring more people to find that, right? Which is, I think, what I'm hearing from you, Paul.
Well, I think but what I admire about your business from the outside and the way that I see you conducting yourself, and I'm sure it's, a duck that seems cool on the surface, but is paddling like mad underneath, or a duck that I don't choose your shitty metaphor. I don't know. Anyway,
it's a duck.
What I like about what you do from the outside is that you're Beno. You show up as Beno. For all the strengths, weaknesses, the beauty, the darkness, whatever it is, you show up as Beno. And I think what people are striving for, I think what I was striving for, is the opportunity to make a living being who I am, acting authentically as myself. And people might not like Beno, but you can't say that Beno is not being authentic when he shows up, right? So that's and I think people thrive on that. You show up with an enthusiasm and you say, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to triple our business this year, and we're going to be the #1 broker. And one of the reasons why people might find a problem with your personality is because you follow through and you actually succeed at the brash goals that you set for yourself, and that pisses other people off.
It does.
I wouldn't say like focus on tripling your business. Like, how do you build a business that allows you to be you? What is like, and that's going to be different for everybody. And winning is going to be, some people is like, if I'm not winning, I don't even want to play, right? But some people might say, like, look, for me and where I am with life, what would be great is if I could sell $5 million houses next year and make whatever that is, 150 or 125, whatever the cut is, right? And say, if I can make that much money working 30 hours a week, that is a home run for me. And I'm not saying that's what it takes to sell. I'm not making any judgments or assuming anything. I'm just saying, fill in those blanks for yourself. Who do you want to be in 2 or 3 years? What kind of a life do you want to be living? What does the structure of that look like? And what do you have to do along the way to get there? It isn't going to, winning doesn't mean tripling your business or doubling your business or growing by 50% for everybody. And some people would be just as happy and better off growing a little bit more slowly than trying to get there all at once. I think that when I look back on my career, that if I had taken a little bit more of a 10K mentality instead of a 100-yard dash mentality, that I maybe would have been more successful. But I was every bit as eager as you still are today, Beno, when I was in my 30s to succeed and to get that promotion and to be #1 on the sales chart, all that kind of stuff. But something happens when we get a little bit older where you go, I think I need other things in my life, or I need to have a different way of approaching the world that is more of a coach or more of an artist than it is as a transactional driven salesperson. And those changes, we talked about Chip Conley earlier. Chip Conley's a guy I interviewed who has an institution called Modern Elder Academy, and he helps people transition into who they want to be in the back half of their careers.
Serial
who they want to
entrepreneur.
be.
I mean, Chip crushed.
Oh
it,
yeah,
right?
this guy's a badass, right? He started Joie de Vivre hotels back in the 80s, I think, and built it up. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire and very successful entrepreneur. But he got to a point where it's like, this bullshit, just the rat race doesn't feel authentic to me anymore. I want to do something else. And he's created this institution that really focuses on the changes that are the very real changes our brains go through as we get into middle age. And the person you're going to be as a professional when you're 55 is very different than the person you are as a professional when you're 32. I think about all the media teams that I took out to concerts and baseball games and went out to bars and stuff. And when I was 32, I was the guy to do that. I can't even imagine what it would be like to try to take out 24-year-old media planners today and try to win their business. It's just not a skill set that's available to a 55 or 53-year-old, you know? So you got to just tap into who you are today and figure out how to structure work in a way that helps you be the best person you can be.
Well, and I think one of the beautiful things about real estate and being a real estate agent is it offers you the capacity to do those things, right? You talk about the golden treadmill. Isn't that what you call it, Paul? The golden treadmill of these doctors or lawyers. That right?
Slow motion lottery.
I mean, what I love about real estate from an outsider's perspective that's now kind of getting an insider's glimpse is the fact that you can be that person. Beno loves golf and he uses it as a currency to entertain potential clients and to keep these relationships going. There's so many ways that you can live that authentic self while also quote unquote in your job, right? And that to me that's a beautiful thing when you compare it to, you know, I had a dental consultancy that I was involved with, and they have the #1 suicide rate of any other profession. And getting into it, I was like, I wonder why that is. And you get into it and you ask that person, right? That dentist, I see that you're miserable in your job, which a lot of them are. Why did you get into it in the first place? It's, oh, well, my dad was a dentist, you
until he killed himself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. I mean, and so it's so interesting you juxtapose what a real estate agent offers you, both the freedom, but also that ability to practice that authenticity of what drives you. If you're a comedian, go ahead and set yourself apart as that, right? And look at Kevin Dwyer, right? In the mortgage space.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to, as you say, be authentic with your brand that you're creating to go sell real estate or sell mortgages like a Kevin Dwyer, right? I don't see many other businesses, right, that you can kind of create your own and be happy within your brand because it's authentic to go out there and earn whatever you want to earn depending on how much you want to bite off.
I don't know what it's like to be a realtor. I mean, I've bought 3 houses. I've sold 1 house. I've spent a shockingly small amount of time with realtors based on the number of transactions I've actually achieved. So people make a lot of assumptions about what it's like to be in a job they dream about before they've actually done it. I've made a pretty big shift into a job that I've dreamed of. And there's a lot of realities that you just aren't capable of anticipating. Like if you want to be a writer, I know a lot of people out there have dreams. I want to be a writer. Well, if you want to be a writer, I hope you like sitting by yourself at a computer every day for 6 hours. Because that's what unless you're Beno and you can hire some, outside writers to help you write a book. If you want to write a book, it means sitting your ass down at a computer and writing. And it's not a very fun way to live if you like to be out among people, interacting with the world. That's not where writing comes from. Writing comes from the lonely time sitting at your computer. It can be incredibly satisfying. It's also a skill set and a discipline that very, very few people actually have. If you want to be a chef, you're going to be up late every night. So if you don't like working, being a chef probably isn't for you. If you don't want to work nights, being a comedian is a terrible, terrible job. If you want to live a 9-to-5 predictable life, then there's certain jobs that are more friendly than others. So first of all, ask yourself those questions, like what kind of a life do I want to lead, just from a logistical standpoint? Second of all, ask yourself, how can I be myself and solve the problems that create value for whomever you're going to serve? I could guess what problem solving looks like in the real estate business. Maybe it's finding the right home for me that fits my work change schedule. Maybe it's helping me find the right mortgage, given some colorful marks on my credit report or whatever. But like, what problems are you solving, and do you enjoy grappling with those kinds of issues? Because some people are great and well qualified and enjoy solving certain kinds of problems, but can't stand fixing other kinds of things. I hate dealing with stuff around the house. Like, I don't even want to think about repairs that have to be done to this or that. Other people find that to be, like really satisfying. So you just have to think, what kind of issues do you enjoy? What kind of the writer Mark Manson, who wrote the book Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, he writes in that book about, don't ask yourself what you enjoy. Ask yourself what kind of problems you can tolerate. Which of the issues, that client calling you at 10 o'clock at night, freaked out about the transaction, or that you're not doing enough for them or whatever, is that the problem you want to deal with? Or is the problem you want to deal with something else?
So Paul, for listeners out there, what's the best way for them to listen to some of your stuff? Just look up Crazy Money on Spotify. How can people get in touch?
Yeah, well, the podcast is available, Crazy with Paul Ollinger, and that's Ollinger. The podcast is available on all the major podcast apps: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, etc. It's also, we just launched a YouTube channel a couple of months ago, so it's youtube.com/crazymoneypodcast. And then, just start, as I do with my favorite podcasts. I've got, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, 15 podcasts that I listen to regularly. But what I do is I just go look through the guests and like, whose conversations do I want to hear? I like Joe Rogan, listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. I know a lot of people don't like him. That's fine. I never listen to an MMA conversation. I don't care about MMA. That's not my thing, right? I don't want to hear about him talk about UFOs and shit like that. I don't care about UFOs. But I want to hear 3 hours of Quentin Tarantino. You're damn right I want to hear that. So that's what I listen to. So when you go to Crazy Money, look through all the guests. I've had incredible variety of people, from Nobel Prize winning economists to professors and pastors. And even last week, I had a porn star on who shared her journey from traditional acting into, and how she sort of accidentally got into the porn business. I know, whoops, look at me, I'm in a porn. No, but it's an interesting story, and it does relate to the question, like, what would you do to make $1 million if you would, like, what wouldn't you do to make $1 million? I guess is a more accurate question. So, and her answer is not much. There's not much she wouldn't do.
Well, look, from a real estate agent standpoint, right, we got to look to make sure that the real estate agents out there that are trying to get better and do more every single year, that their skill sets that they have marry with the passion they have to connect with people, look at property, solve problems for them to move from one house to another. And if they're working within that correct skill set for what they've got, they love, and they're in the right field relative to their passion, they can be very successful out there. The question is can they be content? Right? That's the big kind of word that I think that we're kind of coming to a conclusion here with this podcast, is how can you stay content? Now, Paul, with what you're doing right now, are you content with what you're doing the comedy and writing the books at this stage of your career at 53 years old?
I don't think contentment and sort of feeling that you're doing everything you can are synonyms, right? Like, I think that I'm content in the sense that I know I'm onto something. First of all, I enjoy doing these podcasts enormously. I've learned an incredible amount personally. I see the world in a different way than I would if I weren't doing the podcast. I've met incredible people. We're all in touch more than we would be if I weren't doing the podcast, right? So Beno, you reached out to me, 2 or 3 years ago to say, I'm trying to get these, a small group of motivated people together to share and learn and stuff like that. You probably wouldn't have done that if I didn't have the podcast. But I've met, I got to speak to LL Cool J for 45 minutes. I've met, Sir Angus Deaton, the Nobel Prize winning economist from Princeton. I interviewed the former CEO of British Petroleum. Just some incredible people, authors that whose work I've read and respected, and I get to pick their brains for 45 minutes or an hour. So I'm content in the sense that I know that what I'm doing has value. I'm not content in the sense that I do want to grow it. I do want to monetize it. I do want to get better. I want to make it funnier. I want to make it more fun. I want people to be like, not only is this guy really smart, but he makes learning stuff that I wouldn't otherwise necessarily pick to learn about. He makes it pretty intriguing. And so there's a lot of things I can be doing to get better. And I'm working on them every day. And by the way, it come back to the fact that we need to keep swimming. We all need to keep moving forward. It doesn't mean we have to be obsessed or that we have to focus on professional achievement more than everything else in our lives. But we grow and we enjoy when we're busy. The times we're actually happiest aren't the times we're sitting on our butts on the beach on vacation. The times we're actually happiest is when we're engaged in work that feels authentic to us. So I'm just trying to stay connected to that. I'm trying to stay connected to the intrinsic rewards that I'm getting rather than the extrinsic rewards of money or fame. Although I'm certainly hoping more of that comes in time.
Paul called me several years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, "Beno, look, I want you to compete in this thing we're doing called the Atlanta's Funniest Realtor." So I was like, "Man, I want to do that." And I said, "Look, let's get you very, very uncomfortable. And let's try to get you on stage and see what you can do." And I took that as a challenge, and it was a very big challenge for me. And I very, very much enjoyed it, and I crushed it, and I did great.
And you won.
Yeah, it was great.
Of course he won. Of course he won.
I remember my joke. Realtors always have a side hustle, and geez, I tried to drive Uber, but I couldn't fit people in the back of my Ferrari, which was a good joke, right? In life, you can't just get stuck doing the exact same things, right? And you've got to try different things. I've been writing this book for 3 years, and I've actually been doing it on my own, with help, but it could typically take somebody less than that amount of time if they weren't dealing with the struggles that I was dealing with. I really wanted to really be uncomfortable doing things. And like our friend Jesse Itzler, like he does stuff that makes him very uncomfortable every single day.
Yeah.
But that also makes major gains for him and makes him a lot more interesting. I think that realtors can get in some sort of a rut doing the same thing and trying to do more and sell more. But if you can kind of start doing some things inside that profession that's a little bit out of character for you, I think that the longevity of what you do can have more passion.
Fun is pretty important in work if you want to keep at it for a few decades, right? And selling advertising, it was always every 90 days, it was the same old shit, right? It's like, oh, we just got our new quotas coming down the pike. We don't know how we're going to get them. It's going to be stressful. And then you go through this whole cycle, and then you start over and you do it over and over and over again. And it's Groundhog Day. And I can see how being a realtor is kind of the same thing. Like you go through the seasons the same way. You're like, okay, summer's coming up, the winter's dead, or whatever it is. And you got to find ways to keep it interesting and keep it fun. And I think that, again, looking at what you've done from the outside, Beno, is like you appear to be having fun. People want to work with people who have fun, right? People want to be around the person that is actually feeling good about him or herself, that's feeling good about their job, and that wants to come in and say, look, we're gonna go through this process together. It's going to be hard sometimes, but we're going to do our best to have fun. And in the end, I think people make the decision based on that gut feeling of, this is a person I want to hang out with.
Well, it's what brought us
together,
right?
I trust.
I'm learning something brand new. I didn't know anything about real estate before we started this thing.
And you're going to get your license.
I'm getting my license.
Are you really?
So we're looking
fantastic.
Your house, but
hang on a second. Here a second. Hi, I'm Chris Toth. I'd like to sell you a house.
How long have you been sitting on that one? You're such a jerk.
I want to talk about what neighborhood are you interested in? What's your price range?
Hey, listen, if I could list your house.
Sit on my desk. Please sit on my desk all day, every day. Tough.
Awesome. Amazing. All right. So you're one of the only people that know Beno and I separately, right? Like, were you surprised when you heard that he and I were partnering on this thing, or not at all?
Well, it was sort of funny, and Facebook has changed the way we think about our social connections, because, I'll see people on Facebook, and I'm sure a lot of people have this experience, and you're like, I don't know where I know that person from. I don't know if it's high school. I don't know if it's college. I don't know if it's from bars in Atlanta in the late 80s or whatever, right? And so it sort of like flattens everything. And it's like, I know both Tough and you go on LinkedIn and go, oh, I know these two people together. I know all these people together. You guys are definitely people. So I know Chris from the digital media world, and I know Beno from the Buckhead social scene and friends we have in common, that kind of thing. So when you guys got together, though, I could definitely see that, Chris, you're the guy that's got vision and like a product vision and like a go-to-market vision. And Beno is the guy that's just got the whirling dervish that's got all this energy and wants to just like move forward and conquer the world. And those skill sets are complementary. And I think it's cool. And I look forward to seeing what you guys cook up together.
I love it. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Phenomenal. I've loved every second of it. Paul, thank you so much for your time with us. I'm Beno Ansley.
I'm Chris Tough.
We're brokering billions. Peace.